Kang Do-won had never seen anything like the Velen throne hall. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Strange blue lights floated in the air like lazy fireflies. The floor was made of something that looked like frozen water but felt warm under his shoes. Everything about this alien world made him feel small and out of place. He pulled at his collar and tried to breathe normally. The air here was thinner and cooler than Earth's air. His lungs worked harder with every breath. Around him, hundreds of Velens moved through the massive hall. They were tall and thin, with pale silver skin that seemed to glow softly in the blue light. Their eyes were large and completely silver, with no visible pupils. They wore robes made of material that shifted colors as they walked. Do-won was part of Earth's first diplomatic team to visit the Velen homeworld. He was a cultural liaison officer, which meant his job was to help humans and Velens understand each other. It sounded simple on paper. Standing here among these beautiful and terrifying aliens, he realized how impossible his job really was. "Stop looking so nervous," whispered Yunhana from beside him. She was the team's xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien life. Unlike Do-won, she seemed completely calm. Her eyes moved around the room with scientific curiosity rather than fear. "They can probably smell your fear. Literally. They communicate through chemicals in the air." "That does not make me feel better," Do-won whispered back. The banquet was to celebrate the arrival of the human delegation. Long tables floated in the air, covered with strange foods that Do-won did not recognize. Some of the dishes moved on their own. He decided he was not hungry. Commander Tae-won, the head of their security team, walked behind them. He was a large man with a serious face. His eyes never stopped scanning the room for threats. "Remember the rules," he said quietly. "Do not touch anything. Do not touch anyone." The Velens consider physical contact to be extremely personal. One wrong move could start a war. Do-won nodded. He had memorized all the rules. The Velens were a touch-averse species. They rarely made physical contact with each other. When they did, it was only during important rituals and ceremonies. Touching a Velan without permission was one of the worst insults imaginable. The crowd suddenly grew quiet. Every Velen in the hall turned toward a raised platform at the far end of the room. Do-won turned too and felt his breath catch in his throat. Queen Lyris had arrived. She was younger than Do-won expected. She moved with a grace that made everyone else in the room look clumsy. Her skin was paler than the other Velans, almost white, and her silver eyes seemed to hold entire galaxies inside them. She wore a crown that looked like it was made of frozen starlight. Her robes flowed behind her like water. She was the most beautiful thing Do-won had ever seen. She was also the most powerful being in this part of the galaxy. The Velan Empire controlled over 1,000 star systems. One word from her could destroy Earth or make humanity the most protected species in existence. "No pressure," Do-won thought. The queen descended from the platform and began to walk among her guests. The crowd parted before her, like waves before a ship. Do-won watched her move closer and closer to where the human delegation stood. "She is coming this way," Hana said, her voice excited. "This is incredible. I read that she rarely attends public events." Do-won's heart beat faster. He reminded himself of the rules. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not make sudden movements. Do not touch anyone. The queen stopped in front of their group. Up close, she was even more stunning. Her silver eyes moved over each human with obvious curiosity. When her gaze landed on Do-won, he forgot how to breathe. "Humans," she said. Her voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Welcome to our world. We hope you find our hospitality adequate." Commander Tae-won stepped forward and bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, we are honored beyond words. Earth thanks you for this opportunity." The queen nodded slightly and turned to continue her walk through the crowd. Do-won released a breath he did not know he was holding. That was not so bad, he thought. Then everything went wrong. A group of Velan nobles suddenly pushed through the crowd, trying to get closer to the queen. The movement caused a chain reaction. Bodies pressed against bodies. Do-won was shoved hard from behind. His feet, still not used to the lighter gravity of this world, slipped on the strange floor. He fell forward. His arms reached out automatically, searching for something to grab. His hands found something solid and warm. Time seemed to stop. Do-won looked at his hands. They were pressed flat against bare skin, silver skin. He slowly raised his eyes and found himself staring directly into the face of Queen Lyris. His hands were on her back, on the exposed skin between her shoulder blades, where her robes left her skin bare. He was touching the alien queen. The entire hall fell silent. Every villain in the room turned to stare. Their silver eyes were wide with shock and horror. Do-won heard gasps and whispers, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. He pulled his hands back as if he had touched fire. His whole body went cold with terror. This was it. He had just caused an intergalactic incident. He had just started a war. His entire species would pay for his clumsiness. "I am sorry," he said, dropping to his knees. "I am so sorry. It was an accident. Please forgive me." He pressed his forehead to the floor, shaking with fear. He waited for the guards to grab him. He waited for the sound of weapons. He waited for death. Instead, he heard something that made no sense. "Your hand," the queen said. Her voice sounded strange, different, almost breathless. It was warm. "Your hand." Do-won looked up slowly. The queen was staring at him with an expression he could not understand. Her silver eyes were wide, but not with anger. It was something else. Something like wonder. "Do it again," she said. The whispers in the hall grew louder. Confused murmurs spread through the crowd. The Velan nobles looked at each other with shocked expressions. Commander Taewon and Hana stood frozen, their mouths hanging open. Do-won stayed on his knees, completely lost. He did not know if he had been pardoned or condemned. He did not know if he should run or stay. He only knew that the most powerful being in the galaxy was looking at him like he was the most interesting thing she had ever seen, and she had asked him to touch her again. What had he gotten himself into? Do-won did not sleep that night. He lay on the strange floating bed in his guest room and stared at the ceiling. His mind kept replaying the moment over and over again. The feel of the queen's skin under his hands, the shock in everyone's eyes, her strange request, "Do it again." What did that mean? Was it a test, a trap, some kind of alien custom he did not understand? The morning came slowly. The Velan's sun was dimmer than Earth's sun, casting everything in a soft purple light. Do-won got dressed and walked to the common area, where the human delegation gathered for meals. Commander Taewon was already there, his face hard and serious. Yoon Hana sat beside him, typing rapidly on her data pad. They both looked up when Do-won entered. "Sit down," Taewon said. His voice was not friendly. Do-won sat. He prepared himself for anger and blame. He deserved it. He had made a terrible mistake. But Hana spoke first. "I spent all night researching," she said. "I think I understand what happened. What happened is that he touched the queen and probably doomed us all," Taewon said. Hana shook her head. "No. Listen. The Velans are a cold-blooded species. Their body temperature matches their environment. They have never experienced external warmth from another living being because they are all the same temperature." Do-won frowned. "I do not understand. Humans are warm-blooded," Hana explained. "Our bodies produce heat. Our normal body temperature is about 37 degrees. To a Velan, touching a human would feel like touching a warm fire. They have never felt anything like it." The idea slowly formed in Do-won's mind. "So when I touched her, you were probably the warmest thing she has ever felt," Hana said. Her reaction was not anger. It was surprise. Maybe even pleasure. Before Do-won could respond, a loud chime filled the room. A holographic message appeared in the air. It was written in Velan symbols, but their translation devices quickly converted it to Korean. "Kang Do-won is summoned to the Queen's private chambers. Come immediately." Taewon stood up fast, his hand moving to the weapon at his side. "Absolutely not. This is too dangerous. It could be a trap. Or it could be an opportunity, Hana said. Think about it. If the queen was angry, she would have killed him last night. She had every right to. Instead, she is asking to see him privately. She is curious. Curious is dangerous, Taewon said. Refusing a royal summons is more dangerous, Hana replied. Do-won has to go. Do-won listened to them argue, but he had already made his decision. He stood up and straightened his uniform. I will go. If something happens to me, it is my fault anyway. I created this problem. I should face it. Taewon looked like he wanted to argue more, but he finally nodded. I will have a rescue team ready. If you are not back in 2 hours, we are coming in. Do-won walked through the palace with a Velan guard leading the way. The halls were empty and silent. His footsteps echoed on the strange floors. Every step took him deeper into unknown territory. The guard stopped before a massive door carved with symbols that glowed softly. The door opened on its own, revealing a room filled with soft light and floating furniture. Queen Lyra stood by a window, looking out at her city. She turned when Do-won entered. She had changed from her formal robes into something simpler. She looked younger, almost fragile. Leave us, she told the guard. The guard hesitated but obeyed. The door closed, and Do-won was alone with the most powerful being in the galaxy. You came, she said. You summoned me, Your Majesty. I could not refuse. Could not? Or would not? She tilted her head, studying him like a scientist studying a new species. Are you afraid of me? Do-won thought about lying. He decided against it. Yes, very much. Something that might have been a smile crossed her face. Good. Fear keeps people honest. She walked closer to him. I have a question for you. Human. Why are you so warm? The question was so simple that it surprised him. It is just how humans are. Our bodies produce heat to keep us alive. We are warm-blooded. Warm-blooded, she repeated, testing the words. We have no such thing among the Velan. Our bodies match the temperature around us. We have never felt warmth from another person. She stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see the faint patterns in her silver eyes. I have been touched many times, in ceremonies and rituals. The hands of priests and advisors during my crowning, the hands of healers when I was sick. Every touch was cold, the same temperature as my own skin. I felt nothing. Her voice grew quieter. When you touched me last night, I felt something I have never felt before. Heat. Warmth. It spread through my body like light spreading through darkness. I did not know touch could feel like that. Do-won did not know what to say. He had never thought about something so simple being so significant. On Earth, people touched each other all the time. Handshakes. Hugs. Pats on the back. It was just normal life. I must ask you something, the Queen said. It may seem strange. What is it, Your Majesty? She extended her hand toward him. Her fingers were long and elegant, tipped with nails that looked like polished silver. Will you touch me again? Just my hand. I want to feel it once more. I want to know if it was real. Do-won looked at her hand. His mind raced through all the rules and protocols. This was wrong. This was dangerous. This could cause so many problems. But when he looked at her face, he did not see a queen. He saw someone lonely. Someone who had been isolated her entire life. Someone who had never felt the simple comfort of warm touch. Slowly, gently, he reached out and took her hand in his. Her skin was cool, like touching smooth stone. But as his warmth spread into her fingers, he watched her expression change. Her silver eyes widened. Her lips parted slightly. She breathed out slowly, as if releasing tension she had carried for years. So this is what comfort feels like, she whispered. They stood there in silence, hand in hand, as the purple sun moved slowly across the Velan sky. Do-won did not understand what was happening or what it would lead to. He only knew that in this moment, he was giving someone something they had never had before, something as simple as warmth, and somehow, That felt more important than all the diplomatic treaties in the galaxy. The news spread through the palace like fire through dry grass. A human had been granted a private audience with the queen. Not just once, but 3 times in a single week. The royal court was filled with whispers and suspicion. Dowan felt the weight of every stare as he walked through the palace halls. The Velan nobles looked at him with expressions that ranged from curiosity to disgust. Some of them made no effort to hide their hatred. He was an outsider who had somehow captured the attention of their queen. Commander Tawan was furious. He called a meeting in the human embassy, a small building inside the palace grounds where the delegation lived and worked. His face was red with anger as he paced back and forth. "This needs to stop," Tawan said. "You are putting the entire mission at risk. The Velan nobles are already suspicious of us. Now they think you are manipulating their queen." "I am not manipulating anyone," Dowan said. "She just wants to talk. She is curious about humans." "She is curious about you," Hana corrected. She sat in the corner, watching the argument with interested eyes. And that is what scares them. The queen has been isolated for her entire reign. She does not form attachments. She does not show interest in individuals. Until now. Tawan slammed his hand on the table. That is exactly the problem. If the nobles think a human has influence over their queen, they will see us as a threat. They could demand we leave. They could attack us. This could destroy everything we have worked for. Dowan knew Tawan was right. The political situation was dangerous, but he also remembered the look in Queen Lyris's eyes when he held her hand. That loneliness, that hunger for connection. He could not simply abandon her. Before he could respond, a messenger arrived at the embassy door. The message was simple. The queen had made an official announcement. They gathered around a holographic display and watched as the queen addressed her court. She stood on her throne platform, looking calm and powerful. Her voice echoed through the massive throne hall. "I have created a new position within the royal household," she announced. "The title is Thermal Companion. The human named Kang Do-wan will hold this position. He will have full diplomatic immunity and direct access to my chambers. This is my command." The court erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted in protest. Advisors demanded explanations. But the queen simply stood there, unmoved by their anger. Her decision was final. Back at the embassy, Tawan stared at the display with his mouth open. Thermal companion? What does that even mean? Hana laughed despite the tension. It means she found a way to protect him. If he has diplomatic immunity, no one can legally harm him. She is clever. She is causing a political disaster, Tawan said. Do-wan felt his heart beating fast. The queen had done this for him. She had used her power to keep him safe. He did not know whether to feel grateful or terrified. The next morning, Do-wan was officially installed as the queen's thermal companion. He received new clothes made of Velan materials and a badge that marked his position. He was given rooms closer to the queen's chambers. Everything changed. His duties were simple at first. He sat with the queen in her private garden, a strange place filled with plants that glowed in the dark. She asked him questions about Earth. What did the sun feel like? What did rain feel like? What was it like to hug someone? Do-wan answered every question as best he could. He told her about warm summer days and cold winter nights. He told her about holding hands with friends and hugging family members. He told her about the simple comfort of sitting close to someone you cared about. The queen listened to everything with intense focus. She asked him to describe each sensation in detail. She wanted to understand a world where touch was normal, where warmth was shared freely. Your species bonds through touch, she said one day as they walked through the palace gardens. The strange plants around them pulsed with soft blue light. When you are happy, you embrace. When you are sad, you hold each other. Touch is your language of emotion. I never thought about it that way, Do-wan admitted. It is just normal for us. Our species bonds through distance, the queen said. Her voice was quiet, almost sad. We show respect by staying apart. We show trust by not touching. Even between family members, physical contact is rare and formal. She stopped walking and looked up at the stars visible through the glass ceiling above them. I have ruled for 40 years. I have been touched only during ceremonies, cold hands performing cold rituals. I never knew touch could carry meaning. I never knew it could feel like anything at all. She turned to face him. You taught me something new, Kang Do-won. You showed me that warmth can be shared, that comfort can pass from one body to another. Perhaps my people have been lonely all along, and never knew it. Do-won felt the weight of her words. This was bigger than just him and the queen. This was about two species learning from each other. This was about discovering that what seemed strange could actually be beautiful. May I show you something? He asked. The queen nodded. Slowly, carefully, Do-won reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder. It was a simple gesture. Something humans did without thinking. A touch that said, I am here. You are not alone. The queen closed her eyes. She stood perfectly still as his warmth spread through the fabric of her robe and into her skin. When she opened her eyes again, they were bright with something that might have been tears. What is this gesture called? She asked. We do not really have a name for it, Do-won said. It is just something we do to show support, to let someone know we care. Care, she repeated. Such a simple word for such a powerful feeling. She reached up and placed her own hand over his. Her skin was cool against his warmth. They stood together in the garden. Two different species from two different worlds, connected by something as simple as touch. In that moment, Do-won understood that his job had changed. He was no longer just a diplomatic liaison. He was a bridge between worlds, a teacher of warmth in a cold empire. And somehow, that felt exactly right. High Arbiter Corveth was the most powerful noble in the Velan Empire, after the queen herself. He was old, even by Velan standards, with skin that had faded from silver to a dull gray. His eyes were sharp and cold, filled with centuries of political experience. He had served 3 different rulers before Queen Lyris. And he did not like change. He especially did not like humans. Do-won first saw Corveth during a formal court session. The High Arbiter stood in the center of the throne hall, his voice loud and filled with anger. The other nobles watched in tense silence as he spoke directly to the queen. Your Majesty, Corveth said, his words dripping with false respect. I speak for many in this court when I say that your recent decisions concern us deeply. This attachment to the human is inappropriate. Queen Lyris sat on her throne, her face calm and unreadable. My decisions are my own, High Arbiter. I do not require your approval. With respect, Your Majesty, you do require the support of your court. Corveth gestured at the nobles around him. We have traditions that have lasted for thousands of years. We do not touch. We do not form emotional bonds with outsiders. These rules exist for good reasons. And what reasons are those? The queen asked. To protect us, to keep us strong, to maintain order. Corveth took a step closer to the throne. The humans are a young species. They are chaotic and emotional. They fight wars among themselves. They destroy their own planet with pollution and greed. And now one of them has wormed his way into your private chambers. Do-won stood at the side of the hall with Hana and Taewon. He felt his face grow hot with shame and anger. The accusations were not entirely wrong about humanity's flaws. But they were also unfair. Humans had good qualities too. The human is my thermal companion, the queen said. A position I created through royal authority. He has done nothing wrong. He has corrupted you. Corveth shouted. The outburst surprised everyone. The High Arbiter quickly controlled himself. But his anger was clear. Forgive me, Your Majesty, but I have watched you change since his arrival. You smile now. You show emotion. You allow yourself to be touched. This is not the queen we know. Perhaps the queen you knew was incomplete, Lyris said softly. The words seemed to strike Corveth like a physical blow. He straightened his back and lifted his chin. Then I must formally request a vote of no confidence from the Elder Council. If you cannot see the danger you are putting our empire in, then perhaps you are no longer fit to rule. Gasps filled the throne hall. A vote of no confidence was serious. If the Elder Council agreed with Corveth, the Queen could be removed from power. The Queen stood from her throne. For a moment, she looked less like a powerful ruler and more like a tired woman, but her voice remained strong. You may make your request. High Arbiter. The Council will decide. Corveth smiled a thin, cold smile. I look forward to it, Your Majesty. That night, Dowan asked to see the Queen privately. He found her in her chambers, standing by the window as she often did. The city below glowed with soft lights, and the night sky was full of unfamiliar stars. I should leave, Dowan said. I am causing too many problems. If I go, maybe Corveth will stop his attack on you. The Queen did not turn around. Do you want to leave? The question caught him off guard. He thought about it seriously. Did he want to leave? He thought about Earth, about his family, about the life he had left behind. Then, he thought about the Queen, about their conversations in the garden, about the way her eyes lit up when he taught her something new. No, he admitted, I do not want to leave, but my wants do not matter. Your empire matters. Your position matters. The Queen finally turned to face him. Her silver eyes seemed to hold entire universes. Sit with me. There is something I must tell you. They sat on a floating couch that adjusted itself to hold them both. The Queen was quiet for a long moment before she spoke. I was not born to be queen, she said. The previous royal family died in a plague that swept through the palace 40 years ago. Every member of the bloodline was killed. I was a minor, noble, distant enough from the throne to survive. The Elder Council chose me because I was young and controllable. Or so they thought. She looked at her hands, pale and elegant against the dark fabric of her robes. I have ruled alone ever since. No family, no friends, no one who saw me as anything other than a tool of power. I was touched only during rituals, by cold hands performing empty gestures. I thought that was all life could offer. Her eyes met his. Then you fell against me at that banquet. Your warm hands on my skin. It was like waking up from a dream I did not know I was having. I felt something I had never felt before. Connection, care, warmth. Dowan did not know what to say. He understood loneliness. He had felt it himself, far from home on a strange world. But he could not imagine 40 years of it. You showed me kindness without obligation, the Queen continued. You did not want anything from me. You did not try to use me or manipulate me. You simply cared. Do you know how rare that is for someone in my position? Your Majesty, Lyris, she interrupted. When we are alone, call me Lyris. Dowan nodded slowly. Lyris, I do not want to cause you harm. If my presence weakens your position, your presence strengthens me, she said firmly. For the first time in 40 years, I feel alive. I feel hope. Corveth sees this as weakness, but I know it is strength. The strength to change, the strength to grow, the strength to become something better than I was. She reached out and took his hand, her cool fingers wrapped around his warm ones. I will not let them take this from me. Whatever happens with the Council, I will not abandon the first real connection I have ever had. Dowan squeezed her hand gently. He did not have the right words, so he used the language he had taught her. The language of touch. The language of warmth. They sat together in silence as the night grew darker outside. Two people from different worlds, facing an uncertain future together. And despite everything, Dowan felt something he had not expected. Hope. The Elder Council chamber was ancient. The walls were made of black stone that absorbed light, making the room feel like the inside of a cave. 12 floating chairs circled a central platform where the accused would stand. Each chair held an elder. Valens so old that their skin had turned almost transparent. Dowan stood on the central platform alone. His heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to stand straight. He would not show fear. He would not give Corveth that satisfaction. The High Arbiter stood to the side, his gray face twisted with barely hidden pleasure. He had called this trial to prove that humans were dangerous, that Dowan had manipulated the Queen through some kind of primitive emotional warfare, that Earth's delegation should be expelled from Velen space forever. Queen Lyris sat on a smaller throne at the edge of the chamber. She was not allowed to speak during the trial. She could only watch as the council decided the fate of the human who had changed her life. "This trial will now begin," announced the oldest elder, a Valon so ancient that his voice crackled like dead leaves. "High Arbiter Corveth has accused the human Kang Do-wan of corrupting our queen through inappropriate contact and emotional manipulation. How do you respond to these charges, human?" Do-wan took a deep breath. "I deny them completely." Corveth stepped forward. "Of course you deny them. But the evidence speaks for itself. Since your arrival, the Queen has changed. She shows emotion. She allows herself to be touched. She creates new positions just to keep you close to her. You have used your species' talent for deception to control her." "I have controlled nothing," Do-wan said. "I have only answered her questions and treated her with kindness." "Kindness?" Corveth laughed. But there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call it? Let me show the council what human kindness really looks like." He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air showing scenes from human history. Wars. Destruction. Violence. Entire cities burning. Soldiers fighting in muddy fields. Nuclear explosions mushrooming into the sky. "This is humanity," Corveth said. "A species that has spent its entire existence killing each other. They fight over resources. They fight over beliefs. They fight over land they will not even live long enough to use. And now one of these creatures has attached himself to our queen like a parasite." The elders watched the images with expressions of disgust. Some turned their silver eyes away from the violence displayed before them. Do-wan felt sick. The images were true. Humanity had done terrible things throughout its history. He could not deny that. "The human uses physical contact as a weapon," Corveth continued. "Their species manipulates emotions through touch. They release chemicals through their skin that affect the minds of others. The Queen's behavior proves that she has been drugged or controlled through these primitive means." "That is not true," Do-wan shouted. "Human touch does not control minds. It is simply communication. Connection. We touch to show care, not to manipulate." "Then explain why our queen has become so attached to you," Corveth demanded. "She has ruled alone for 40 years. She has never shown interest in any individual. Then you touch her once, and suddenly she cannot function without you. If that is not manipulation, what is it?" The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to Do-wan. He knew this was his moment. He could try to argue with words, but words would not convince these ancient beings. They did not understand humanity. They did not understand warmth, so Do-wan decided to show them. He reached up and removed his translation device from his ear. Without it, he could not understand Valan language. But he did not need to speak. He needed to act. He stepped down from the central platform and walked toward the elders. Guards moved to stop him. But the oldest elder raised a hand. "Let him approach." One. Do-wan stopped in front of the oldest elder. This being had lived for centuries. His skin was so thin that Do-wan could see the slow pulse of blood beneath it. His hands rested on his chair. Fragile and ancient, Do-wan knelt before the elder. Slowly, gently, he reached out and took the old being's hand in his own. The elder gasped. His ancient eyes went wide with shock. The other elders rose from their seats in alarm. Guards drew their weapons. The entire chamber held its breath, but Do-wan did not move. He simply held the elder's hand, letting his warmth flow into that ancient, cold flesh. He looked up at the elder's face and saw something there that surprised him. Tears. The oldest elder was crying. Silver fluid streamed down his transparent cheeks as he experienced something he had never felt in all his long centuries of life. Warmth from another living being. This, Dowan said, putting his translation device back in. This is our weapon. This is what I gave your queen. This is what humans offer to the galaxy. He stood and faced the council. Yes. Humanity has a violent history. We have done terrible things. But we have also learned something that your species never had to learn. We learned that connection heals. We learned that touch can comfort. We learned that warmth shared between two beings creates something stronger than either could be alone. He gestured at the oldest elder, who still sat in shock, staring at his own hand as if seeing it for the first time. Look at him. I did not control his mind. I did not drug him. I simply showed him kindness. Is kindness truly so dangerous? Corveth stepped forward, his face twisted with anger. This proves nothing. He has simply demonstrated the very manipulation I warned about. No, the oldest elder said. His voice was stronger now, filled with wonder. No, High Arbiter. This is not manipulation. I have lived for 800 years. I have experienced many things. But I have never felt what I just felt. Warmth, connection. It was beautiful, the other elders murmured among themselves. Several looked at Dowan with new eyes, curiosity replacing suspicion. We are not perfect, Dowan said. Humans make mistakes. We hurt each other. But we also heal each other. We comfort each other. We hold each other when times are dark. Touch is not our weapon. It is our gift, and if you allow it, we would like to share that gift with your people. The oldest elder looked at Dowan for a long moment. Then he looked at Queen Lyris, who sat on her throne with tears running down her silver cheeks. I have heard enough, the elder said. I call for a vote. All who believe this human should be condemned. Speak now. Silence. All who believe this human should be freed and the charges dismissed. 11 voices spoke as one. Freed. Corveth's face went pale with rage. He opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. The council had spoken. He had lost. Dowan felt his legs go weak with relief. He looked at the queen and saw her smiling at him, the first real smile he had ever seen on her face. He had won, but as he watched Corveth storm out of the chamber, he knew this was not the end. The High Arbiter was not the kind of being who accepted defeat gracefully. The real battle was still to come. The attack came at midnight. Dowan was asleep in his quarters near the queen's chambers when the first explosion shook the palace. He jerked awake, his heart racing, as emergency lights began flashing red throughout the room. Alarms screamed through the corridors. He grabbed his communication device and tried to contact Commander Taiwan. Static. The signal was being blocked. This was not an accident. This was planned. Dowan pulled on his clothes and ran into the hallway. Valan guards were running in all directions, shouting orders in their own language. Through a window, he could see fires burning in the palace grounds below. Several buildings in the human embassy compound were already destroyed. The embassy. His friends were in the embassy. Dowan ran. He pushed past confused guards and panicked servants. He followed the smoke and the sound of fighting until he reached the embassy gates. What he saw made his blood run cold. Commander Taiwan stood in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by fallen enemies. His uniform was torn and bloody, but he was still fighting. Beside him, Yun Hana crouched behind an overturned table, using a piece of debris as a weapon. The attackers wore dark robes with no markings. They were Velans, but not palace guards. These were assassins. Corveth's people. Taiwan! Dowan shouted as he ran into the courtyard. The commander turned his head for just a moment. Dowan, get down! Something hit Dowan from the side. He crashed to the ground, rolling across the stone. When he looked up, he saw a Velan assassin standing over him, raising a blade that glowed with strange energy. Before the blade could fall, a bolt of light struck the assassin in the chest. The attacker flew backward and crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Dowan turned to see Queen Lyra standing at the entrance to the courtyard. She held a weapon in her hands. Something elegant and deadly, that pulsed with power. Behind her stood her personal royal guard, 20 of the most elite soldiers in the Empire. "Protect the humans," she commanded. "Kill anyone who resists." The royal guard swept into the courtyard like a silver wave. Within minutes, the remaining assassins were either dead or captured. The attack was over. Dowan struggled to his feet. His body ached from the fall, but nothing was broken. He watched as Lyris walked through the courtyard, checking on the wounded, giving orders to her soldiers. She moved like a true warrior queen. "Your Majesty," Commander Tewan said, bowing despite his injuries. "You saved our lives." "You are guests in my empire," Lyris said. "Your safety is my responsibility." She turned to look at Dowan, and for a moment her queenly mask slipped. He saw fear in her eyes. Fear for him. "Are you hurt?" "I am fine," he said. "Thanks to you." Before anyone could say more, a messenger ran into the courtyard. "Your Majesty, High Arbiter Corveth has seized the communication center. He is broadcasting a message to the entire Empire, calling for your removal." Lyris's face hardened. "Then we end this tonight." She turned to her guards. "Secure the human delegation. Commander Tewan, your people will stay here where it is safe." Then she looked at Dowan. "You will come with me." "Your Majesty, that is not wise," one of her guards said. "The human should stay protected." "The human is why this is happening," Lyris said. "He should be there when it ends." "Besides," she added, with something that almost looked like a smile, "I may need his warmth." They moved through the palace quickly. The halls that Dowan had found beautiful now seemed dangerous. Shadows could hide enemies. Any corner could lead to an ambush. But the royal guard was highly trained, and they reached the communication center without incident. The doors were sealed. Corveth had barricaded himself inside with his remaining supporters. Through the thick metal, Dowan could hear his voice echoing through speakers throughout the palace. "The Queen has betrayed our traditions. She has allowed an alien to corrupt her. I call upon all true Velans to reject her rule and return to the old ways." Lyris stepped forward. "Open the door," she commanded. 2 guards stepped forward with heavy weapons and blasted the door off its hinges. The metal flew inward, crashing into the room beyond. Inside, Corveth stood before a massive communication console. Screens surrounded him, showing his face broadcast to cities across the Empire. When he saw the Queen, his expression shifted from confidence to desperation. "Guards," he shouted, "stop them!" His remaining supporters, perhaps a dozen Velans, rushed forward. But they were no match for the royal guard. Within seconds, they were disarmed and forced to their knees. Corveth was alone. He pulled a blade from his robes, the same kind of glowing weapon the assassins had used. His eyes were wild with rage and fear. "Stay back! All of you! I will not let this empire fall to alien influence." He lunged not at Lyris, but at Dowan. The blade swept through the air in a deadly arc. Dowan tried to move, but he was not fast enough. The weapon would kill him. Then Lyris was there. She stepped between Dowan and the blade. Not to fight. Not to block. She simply placed her hand on Corveth's chest and stopped his momentum completely. The High Arbiter froze. His eyes went wide with shock. The blade trembled in his hand, centimeters from the Queen's face. "You fear change," Lyris said softly. "I did too. For 40 years, I ruled the way you wanted. Cold, distant, alone. I thought that was strength. I thought isolation was power." She took a step closer to him. Her hand remained on his chest, directly over his heart. "But I was wrong. I was not strong. I was just afraid. Afraid to feel. Afraid to connect. Afraid to be anything other than what I was told to be." Corveth's hand shook. The blade slowly lowered. "Your Majesty, the traditions can change," Lyris said. "Species can evolve. We do not have to remain frozen in the past forever. The human showed me that. He showed me that warmth is not weakness, connection is not corruption, growth is not betrayal. She removed her hand from his chest and held it out, palm up. I do not want to destroy you, Corvith. You have served this empire for centuries, but I will not let you stop us from becoming something better than we were. Levin, for a long moment, nothing moved. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, Corveth dropped his weapon. It clattered to the floor, the glow fading from its blade. He fell to his knees before the queen. I do not understand. I have tried to kill you. I have tried to destroy everything you care about. Why do you not hate me? Lyris looked at him with something like pity. Because I understand you. You are afraid of what I was becoming. I was afraid too. But the human taught me something important. She glanced at Dowan, and her silver eyes softened. Fear can be faced, loneliness can be healed, and even the coldest heart can learn to accept warmth. The guards moved forward and took Corveth into custody. As they led him away, the old High Arbiter looked back at Dowan with an expression of complete confusion. He still did not understand. Perhaps he never would, but that was all right. Understanding would come with time. Lyris turned to Dowan. The queenly mask was gone now. She looked exhausted and relieved, and something else. Something vulnerable. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. Dowan wanted to say something meaningful, something worthy of the moment, but his body had finally caught up with everything that had happened. His legs buckled, and he would have fallen if Lyris had not caught him. She held him upright, her cool arms surprisingly strong. I have you, she said. I will always have you. For the first time since arriving on this alien world, Dowan felt completely safe. 1 month had passed since Corveth's failed coup. The Velen Empire had changed more in those 30 days than it had in the previous 1,000 years. The treaty signing ceremony was held in the Great Throne Hall, the same place where Dowan had first accidentally touched the queen. But the hall looked different now. Alongside the cold blue lights, there were warm golden lights installed near the human delegation area. Comfortable chairs had been placed beside the floating Velan furniture, small changes that showed how two cultures were beginning to blend. Representatives from Earth stood on one side of the hall. Commander Taewan wore his dress uniform, his injuries from the attack now fully healed. Yoon Hana stood beside him, practically glowing with excitement. She had been promoted to lead the new xenobiology exchange program that would bring human scientists to the Velen homeworld. Representatives from the Velan Empire stood on the other side. The Elder Council was there in full, including the oldest elder who still sometimes stopped Dowan in the hallways just to shake his hand. Even nobles who had once supported Corveth now stood respectfully, willing to accept the changes their queen had brought. Queen Lyris sat on her throne, dressed in robes that combined Velen silver with streaks of warm gold. It was a new design, created specifically for this day, a symbol of union between cold and warm, between distance and connection. Dowan stood at the front of the human delegation. He wore the formal clothes of a cultural ambassador, a new title that had been created just for him. After everything that had happened, both Earth and the Velen Empire had decided he was the perfect person to represent humanity permanently in this part of the galaxy. The ceremony began with speeches. Earth's lead diplomat talked about the importance of understanding between species. A Velan representative spoke about the value of evolution and growth. The oldest elder said a few words about wisdom and change. Then it was time for the actual signing. The treaty was a simple document with enormous implications. It established cultural exchange programs between Earth and the Velen Empire. Humans would teach Velens about physical affection, emotional expression, and communal bonding. In return, Velens would share their advanced technology and medical knowledge with humanity. Commander Taewan stepped forward to sign for Earth. His hand was steady as he wrote his name on the document. Then, a Velan minister stepped forward to sign for the Empire. When both signatures were complete, the hall erupted in polite applause. But the ceremony was not over. Queen Lyris stood from her throne and descended the steps. The hall fell silent. This was not part of the planned program. No one knew what she was about to do. She walked through the crowd of delegates and nobles until she stood directly in front of Do-won. Her silver eyes held his gaze with an intensity that made his heart beat faster. 1 month ago, she said, her voice carrying through the silent hall. This human touched me by accident. It was the first time in my life I had felt warmth from another living being. I did not know what to do with that feeling. I did not understand it. But I knew I did not want to lose it. She glanced around at the assembled crowd. Many of you thought I had been corrupted, that I had been manipulated, that I had lost my mind. But I want you all to understand something. She turned back to Do-won. This human did not change me. He showed me who I already was. He showed me that beneath all my cold traditions and empty rituals, there was a person who wanted to connect, who wanted to feel, who wanted to be more than just a symbol on a throne. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool, but her grip was firm. Humans do not conquer through force alone. They conquer through kindness, through warmth, through the simple act of reaching out to another being and saying, "You are not alone." That is their true power. And it is a power I am grateful to have experienced. Do-won felt tears forming in his eyes. He had never expected any of this when he first came to this alien world. He had been a minor diplomat, assigned to a job he did not fully understand. Now he was standing in front of 2 civilizations, holding the hand of a queen who had changed his life as much as he had changed hers. "Lyris," he said quietly, using her name as she had asked him to do when they were alone. But they were not alone now. And somehow, that felt right. "I do not have fancy words. I am not good at speeches. But I want you to know something." He took a breath. On Earth, when we meet someone who makes our lives better, someone who shows us things we never knew we needed, we do something very simple. It is a gesture that means more than any word or treaty. He gently pulled her closer. Then, in front of both delegations, in front of the Elder Council, in front of the entire Velan Empire watching through broadcasts across 1,000 star systems, he wrapped his arms around her. He hugged her. The hall gasped. Velans who had never seen such a gesture stared with wide eyes. Humans smiled, understanding exactly what Do-won was doing. It was the most human thing he could possibly do. Queen Lyris stood frozen for a moment. Then, slowly, her arms came up and wrapped around him in return. She buried her face in his shoulder, and though no one could see, Do-won felt the warm moisture of her tears against his neck. They stood there for a long moment. 2 beings from different worlds, holding each other as the universe watched. When they finally separated, Lyris's eyes were bright with tears and something else. Joy. Real, genuine joy. She turned to face the crowd, her hand still holding Do-won's. "This is a hug," she announced. "It is how humans show care and connection. It is what I want to share with all of you, if you are willing to learn." The oldest elder stepped forward. He moved slowly, his ancient body taking careful steps. When he reached them, he stopped and looked at Do-won. "Would you teach me?" he asked. Do-won smiled. He reached out and gently pulled the old elder into a careful hug. The ancient Velan made a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. When Do-won released him, the elder's eyes were wet with silver tears. "Extraordinary," the elder whispered. "Absolutely extraordinary." One by one, other Velans stepped forward. Some were curious. Some were hesitant. Some were eager. Do-won and the other humans greeted each one, teaching them the simple act of embracing another person. By the end of the ceremony, the throne hall had transformed. Humans and Velans stood together in small groups, some talking quietly, some experimenting with handshakes and pats on the back. The cold formality of Velan culture was beginning to thaw. Later that night, Do-won stood on a balcony overlooking the Velan capital. The city sparkled with lights below, and the unfamiliar stars shone above. He had never imagined his life would lead here. Lyris joined him on the balcony. She stood close, their shoulders almost touching. "Thank you," she said, "for teaching me that warmth is not weakness." Dowan smiled and reached out to take her hand. "Thank you for letting me in." They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Two species, two worlds, two people who had found something neither expected. Connection, warmth, hope. Far below, in the city streets, a young Velen child stumbled and fell. An adult Velen nearby reached down and helped the child up. Then, hesitantly, the adult placed a hand on the child's shoulder in a gesture of comfort. The child looked up, surprised, then smiled. It was a small moment, an insignificant event in the vast span of galactic history. But it was also the beginning of something new. The beginning of a universe where coldness did not have to mean loneliness. Where distance did not have to mean isolation. Where even the most different beings could find common ground through the simple act of reaching out to one another. All because one human accidentally touched an alien queen's back, and she had said she enjoyed it.